We have started with the hybrid drivetrain designs, and in this part we have seen the various control strategies. So various control strategies related with the series hybrid drivetrain. These are, one is the maximum SOC of PPS, that is maximum state of charge of PPS control strategy. Then we have seen the other control strategy, which is thermostat control strategy, which is engine on off strategy. So in both the cases we have seen in detail how exactly the engine can be operated and how the PPS charging as well as the on off engine control can be achieved by using the proper control. So here's this particular illustration of thermostat control, this also we have seen. So there exists a SOC top line and SOC bottom line. Here you can see this is the SOC bottom line and this is the SOC top line. So in between the top and bottom line of SOC, the PPS state of charge is supposed to be controlled. So this is the maximum value, this is the minimum value, and when the PPS reaches its maximum SOC, the engine gets off here. When it again reaches the bottom line, engine gets on. So this is the on off strategy or thermostat control strategy of series hybrid electric drivetrain. In addition to this, if you see, this is one important addition. What you can see, what is state of charge? So we have seen and we have discussed the state of charge quite a number of times, and this state of charge, this is the term which is frequently appearing in the literature for the electric drives. So what is meant by SOC? So this SOC is state of charge. It indicates the charge level of a battery. If the SOC of the battery is 100%, then it is understood that the battery is charged to 100%. Now for example, if the voltage rating of the battery is 12 volt, suppose you have a 12 volt battery, its SOC is said to be 100% if the terminal voltage is 12 volt. So this SOC is always related with the terminal voltage of the battery. So if the terminal voltage of the battery which is existing, if it is equal to the rated voltage of the battery or the rated operating conditions of the battery, then we say that the SOC is 100%. If the terminal voltage drops to some other value, if the voltage of the battery reduces to 6 volts, now as you see, when the battery is connected to the load, when it is driving some load, the terminal voltage of the battery will drop, and as it discharges more and more, there will be more and more drop in the voltage. So in that case, when the voltage drops to 6 volts from 12 volts after a certain time when it is supplying load, we say that the SOC is equal to 50%. So the state of charge has reduced to 50% of its rated value. So in a graph you can show it in this fashion. So this is SOC on y-axis and time on x-axis. So if the SOC is 100%, there is one line which is shown dotted. This is 100% SOC, and there is one more line which is 95% of SOC. So this is approximately taken as 95%. So this 95% of SOC is said to be top line of SOC. So what is the meaning of top line? Top line of SOC is the level of the voltage above which the battery should not be charged. So this charging beyond this particular line of top line, this will cause the reduction in the life cycle of the battery. Similarly, it can cause unnecessarily heating of the battery, as well as the some of the gases may be produced inside the battery. so bubbling and all. So that should not happen. So that is why we say that the battery must be charged up to only 95%, not beyond approximately equal to 95%. Now there is a bottom line which is around 30%. So this is just taken as an illustration. Sometimes it may be around 25% or even 30% also, but for the illustration purpose I have taken this as 30%. So this 30% of the voltage, rated voltage, we call it as bottom line. That is the bottom line of state of charge. Now here 95% of 12 volt, suppose if you have a 12 volt battery, the 95% of 12 volt is this top line. So it could be around, say around 11 or 12 volts and around 11 volts, and 30% is 3.6 volt. So this is 3.6 volt line and this is 11 volt line. So between 3.6 and 11, the region in which the battery operates, this region is known as safe operating zone of the battery. So what is the meaning of safe operating zone? It is always recommended to operate the battery in the safe operating zone so that the life cycle of the battery is increased and the heating of the battery elements can be minimized. So here you can see beyond this region the battery operation causes reduction in the life cycle and heating. So this is the top line of SOC and bottom line of SOC. So this top line and bottom line we will be dealing with quite frequently in case of series and parallel hybrid vehicles. So now we will go back to the earlier part. So here top SOC line is that value which I have shown you just now, and bottom SOC line is that particular line below which the battery should not get discharged. Now here on-off control strategy, this also we have seen in the earlier class. Now next part is sizing of the major components. Now whatever components have been shown in the first slide, so if we go to that particular slide, this slide, so whatever blocks are there here in this particular block diagram, how exactly the design of these blocks can be done. So especially engine block, how it is to be designed, PPS block, how it is to be designed, and motor, how this motor can be designed. So these are the three major parts which are responsible for the performance of the vehicle. These are engine, peaking power source PPS, and motor controller, motor. So this motor, peaking power source and engine, how these three main parameters can be designed. So that we are going to see. Power rating, major components, how they are being sized. The major components in a series hybrid drivetrain include traction motor, engine generator, and PPS. So these three parameters only we are considering for design. The design of the power ratings of these components is the first and most important step in the whole system design. So in this particular thing, the important parameters to be considered or the constraints are nothing but acceleration performance, so highway driving and urban driving, and energy balance in the PPS. So these are the three different constraints for which the design of the components will be considered. And this accelerating performance is nothing but how fast you want to accelerate the vehicle and how exactly the performance of the vehicle is judged. So here greater is the acceleration performance, greater is the power of the engine. Then highway driving and urban driving. This highway driving and urban driving, this will be decided based on the level of the road and density of the traffic on the road. So these two parameters will decide whether you are driving on the highway or whether you are driving in the urban roads. So urban roads, they require frequent stop and start mechanism, whereas highway driving you need not to stop and drive or stop and start the vehicle frequently. Once it catches its maximum speed or steady state speed, you can drive the vehicle for a long time over the same highway. So highway driving, the design considerations are different. Urban driving, the considerations are different. Then energy balance in the PPS. So how exactly you want to achieve the control strategy for PPS, that is peaking power source, whether you want to charge PPS instantaneously very fast and use the PPS to its maximum extent, or you want to keep it below that particular level to a certain degree, that will be decided for the third constraint, that is energy balance in the PPS. Now traction motor, power rating design of traction motor. This traction motor is nothing but your motor which is used for driving the vehicles. Now as you see in the main block diagram, this traction motor is nothing but the motor which drives the wheels of the series hybrid drivetrain. So this is directly coupled with the wheels of the vehicle, and the power rating can be determined by vehicle acceleration performance requirements, motor characteristics and transmission characteristics. So here this is the equation which is given for the power rating. So this is power rating. So these components are three components. The first component is deciding the acceleration performance. Second parameter is the rolling resistance power, and the third parameter is aerodynamic drag component. So these three if you add, you will get the total power of the traction motor. So these parameters whatever have been given, delta, MV, TA, all these things, these are constants related with the particular drive motor as well as vehicle performance parameters. So here figure 7.6 is this particular graph. So for any tractive power design or traction motor, this is the characteristic which is available. So here suppose you have two gears, low gear and high gear, two gear mechanism. In such cases, these are nothing but your performance or accelerating performance for the traction motor. So here speed torque characteristic of electric motor used for the traction purpose. Now for low gear you have this characteristic, for high gear you have this characteristic. So VB1 and VB2, these are known as base speeds. So VB1 is here, which is this B, that is base speed is equal to VB1. This could be around 30, this could be around 30, and for high gear the base speed is little higher, which is say around 50. So 30 and 50, these are the two base speeds for these two gears. Low gear it is lower speed, high gear it is higher speed. So now here one more thing you can see, this dotted line is coming from here and approaching here. So this is FW plus FR. So this FW plus FR is force due to aerodynamic drag and rolling resistance. So rolling resistance of the vehicle as well as aerodynamic drag, these two components added together is this dotted line. And here you can see as you go on increasing the vehicle speed, the FW plus FR, this component slightly increases. So here this slightly increases with vehicle speed. Now whatever x axis value you have, this is the vehicle speed, and for this motor speed ratio is taken as 4. That means actual speed is 4 times the base speed. So this here you can see motor speed ratio, this is for the x-axis component, low gear and high gear. So compared with low gear and high gear, the speed ratio is 4. That is what is shown here. So 20, 40, 60, this is in RPM, rotations per minute, or it could be in terms of the kilometers per hour. It could be also in terms of kilometers per hour, but irrespective of the unit for the parameter written on x-axis, the force is decided by this particular characteristic. So power characteristic, if you see, you have this one characteristic for the low gear and this is for high gear. So low gear and high gear, you have VB1 and VB2 as two base speeds. So when you are designing this tractive effort traction motor which is driving the vehicle, in that case you should see how exactly the performance is there, what are the base speeds you want to have, what is the maximum speed you want to have, what is the aerodynamic drag and rolling resistance characteristic. Accordingly, this particular characteristic, these two components are available in the equation here. These are the two proportionate components. This is actually power equation. So these are the power components. But if you find out equivalent force components, this is for the aerodynamic drag, sorry, this is for the rolling resistance and this is for the aerodynamic drag. So these two components have been shown in this diagram. Speed ratio is defined as the ratio of maximum speed to the base speed. So speed ratio is taken as 4, which is equal to maximum speed divided by base speed. It should be noted that rated motor power determined by equation 7.5 is only an estimate for meeting the acceleration performance. So if you want to have accurate determination of motor power, verification is required. Now here the power rating of traction motor versus speed ratio of drivetrain. So maximum speed and base speed, this ratio is x. So for variable value of x, how exactly the power rating changes? So if the ratio of speed, actual speed to the base speed is increased, what happens? The power rating goes on reducing. So this is the power rating of any traction motor, which is a function of the ratio of maximum speed and base speed. So when you have ratio is equal to 1, you have maximum power. When maximum speed divided by base speed, this particular ratio is increasing, the power rating goes on reducing. That is how you can see here. These are all parameters which are taken for a particular illustration. So this performance has been shown for a particular motor for which these are the parameters considered. These are the parameters for first part of the equation 7.5. So these parameters, whatever you have here, AF, CD, FF, MV and all these. So these are given here, you can see. These are the parameters. So these parameters are decided by the vehicle performance. So this is available here. So the calculation of vehicle performance is exactly the same as that of a pure electric vehicle. Similar calculations are valid for series hybrid drivetrain also. So this is about the power rating of the traction motor. Now the next part is power rating of engine or generator. So whatever engine or generator you are using for series hybrid drivetrain, how exactly the power rating of that engine or generator can be decided. So that is given here. So here you can see it is decided by the road, nature of road, whether you are driving on the highways, whether you are driving in the urban areas, depending upon the traffic density as well as nature of road, you can find out the rating of the engine. So here if you can see the PPS, the engine generator should be able to produce sufficient power to support this speed. So this speed is nothing but the speed such as highway driving between cities and driving with a frequent stop-go driving pattern such as driving in cities. With the former, driving should not rely on the PPS to support the operation at a high speed of, for example, 130 km per hour or 80 meters per hour. So usually what is done is, at higher speeds the PPS is not being used. At higher speeds the generator itself or the engine that itself is sufficient to produce that power, and PPS is kept under open circuit conditions. So that is not being used for supplying the power. So for a frequent stop-go driving pattern, the engine generator should produce sufficient power to maintain the energy storage of the PPS at a certain level, so that enough power can be drawn to support vehicle acceleration. So when you are frequently stopping and starting the machine or engine, what happens is the PPS may be used to enhance the power requirement at the vehicle wheels. The energy consumption in PPS is closely related to the control strategy. So control strategy, how exactly you are controlling the PPS charging and discharging, that will be decided, and it will decide the energy consumption. At a constant speed and on a flat road, the power output from the power source can be expressed as, so this is PPS. On a flat road, how the output power from the engine is written, here you can see PEG is the power supplied by the generator or engine. This is equal to V divided by 1000 NF into NM. Sorry, this is eta F and eta M. These are efficiency of transmission and traction motor respectively, and this parameter is the voltage, and these are the other parameters of the engine. So in the next graph, if you see this, for a particular say 1500 kg passenger car of a particular make, this variation has been shown: vehicle speed versus load power. So vehicle speed at it increases, the load power also increases. Almost linear fashion, you can see little curve is there here, otherwise it is almost linear. These are the parameters which are there given in the equation here. So MV, FR, CD, AF and so on. The power output of the engine is about 20 to 25% more than that shown in figure 7.7. So here whatever power output has been shown, 20 to 25% more of this power may be required for the engine or the generator. For a frequent stop-go driving pattern, the engine or generator should produce sufficient power to maintain the energy storage of the PPS at a certain level, so that enough power can be drawn to support vehicle acceleration. So when you are frequently stopping and starting the vehicle, in that case the PPS is a supporting parameter. PPS is nothing but your battery or the other sources such as ultra capacitor or super capacitor or flywheels. So this can support the actual mechanism in which the battery can supply the generator. That means it can support the generator to produce the required amount of power. So we have seen these control strategies in the earlier part, wherein if the engine generator power is more, how exactly the power can be divided amongst the traction motor as well as for the charging of the PPS. So at a constant speed and on a flat road, the power output from the power source can be expressed in this fashion. It indicates that the power demand at constant speed is much less than that for acceleration. So in this example, about 35 kilowatt are needed at 130 km per hour of constant speed drive. So here this is a constant speed drive of the mechanism, and when the vehicle is driving in a stop and go pattern in urban areas, the power that the engine or generator produces should be equal to or slightly greater than the average load power in order to maintain balanced PPS energy storage. That means the amount of power which the engine or generator produces should be equal to or slightly greater than the average load power in order to maintain balanced PPS. So when you are running the generator or the engine, it is equally feeding the power into the PPS. That means it is going to charge the PPS. So that is why here you can see the average load power can be expressed by using this equation, that is P average PMV this is equal to 1 upon T integral from 0 to T, this equation first part and second part. So here again these are all parameters expressed in the first part of the equation, where delta is the vehicle mass factor and dV by dt is the acceleration of the vehicle. So here this is the acceleration part, V is the velocity, not the voltage, this is the velocity. The first term is the average power that is consumed to overcome the tire rolling resistance and aerodynamic drag. So here this must be 7.7. So this is the first equation, this is for the rolling resistance and aerodynamic drag, and the second part is the average power consumed in acceleration and deceleration. So here this is the second part, this is the requirement of the power for accelerating or decelerating the vehicle. So this is the first part is the rolling resistance and aerodynamic resistance. Second part is the tractive effort required for driving the vehicle with particular acceleration performance requirement. When the vehicle has the ability to recover all of the kinetic energy of the vehicle, the average power consumed in acceleration and deceleration is 0. So when the vehicle has the ability to recover all of the kinetic energy, what we call it as is the regenerative braking. That means when you are braking the vehicle, you are converting the kinetic energy of the wheels into an electric energy, and then you are feeding it back to the PPS or power source or the battery. So when the vehicle is able to recover all of its kinetic energy during braking process, we see that the average power consumed in acceleration and deceleration is 0. Otherwise it will be greater than 0 as shown in 7.9. So here you can see this is average power consumed in acceleration and deceleration with full, partial and 0 regenerative braking. Now here you can see on x-axis we have the time axis, y-axis is power in acceleration and deceleration, Now with respect to time, suppose we are running over this particular characteristic. So power in acceleration is above x-axis, power in deceleration is power below x-axis. So exactly what is happening here, suppose if the vehicle is moving here like this, and regenerative braking if you are applying, you have this power, and partial regenerative braking if you apply, this is average power without regenerative braking, this is average power with partial regenerative braking. So if you don't apply the regenerative braking at all, you have this power, average power. If you have the regenerative braking, you have average power here. So you can see here from this that if you are able to recover partial amount of power, then you have this much average power. Now if you have full regenerative braking, that means whatever amount of power is there, kinetic energy is there in the wheels, if you are able to recover completely, you have power in acceleration and deceleration as 0 on this axis. So you are able to achieve acceleration full and deceleration full with this particular characteristic, which is 0. That means average power becomes 0 with full regenerative braking. So here this particular graph shows average power with partial regenerative braking. Only part of the power you are able to recover. This is for full regenerative braking, you are able to cover full power, and the actual accelerating power is very small. So that way you can show this particular graph. Then in the actual design of engine or generator system, the power capability should be greater than, or at least not less than, the power that is needed to support the vehicle during driving at a constant speed and at average power when driving in urban areas. So in actual design, some typical urban drive cycle may be used to predict the average power of the vehicle as shown in the figure 710. So here if you see this particular 710, instantaneous power and average power with full and zero regenerative braking in typical drive cycles. So here typical drive cycles, as we have seen earlier, this is either highway driving cycle or it could be urban driving cycle. In highway driving cycle, the vehicle is moving with almost constant speed, there are no much brakes applied, and in urban driving cycles what happens is, because there is lot of traffic density is more, you are frequently stopping and deceleration of the vehicle is being done to brake or to achieve the required speed, to break the speed. So all these things we call it as urban driving cycle. So you can see here speed versus time for urban driving cycle, where you get lot of restrictions, you get lot of obstructions on the road due to traffic density. So here you can see speed is increased, it goes to 0, again it remains 0 for some time, again it increases, again goes to 0. So this way you can get the driving cycles with respect to time. So depending upon the road conditions and the traffic conditions. Whereas for highway driving cycle, you can see speed versus time, almost it is running at constant speed. So the speed never goes to 0, whereas here the speed goes to 0 at so many times, frequently it goes to 0. So that is nothing but frequent start and stop of the vehicle. Here there is no such mechanism wherein the engine must be stopped or started frequently. So for this particular FTP75, this FTP75 is a type of vehicle for illustration used for this particular diagram. Average power with zero regenerative braking stands for the operation without implementing regenerative braking. So zero regenerative braking means you are not applying any regenerative braking. The power is vested in the mechanical brakes. So in that case, you can see here, with zero regenerative braking, you have this average power requirement, upper line. So this is average power with zero regenerative braking. Then average power for full regenerative braking, if you do it for full regenerative braking, you have this particular power, which you can see here. So the average power requirement under this condition is smaller than the average power required for zero regenerative braking process. Then in the same case, here you can see the power requirement with respect to time, this changes. So this is the instantaneous power requirement. These are the graphs for instantaneous power. So when the power is on the positive side, we are accelerating the vehicle on this side on positive y-axis. If it is on the negative y-axis, this is decelerating power. So you are decelerating the vehicle and you are regenerative braking you are applying. So in all these instantaneous curves, we are averaging out the average power and we are also averaging out the regenerative braking power. So accordingly, here you can see with regenerative braking, we have lower power requirement of the engine drive. Okay, so it doesn't require to produce larger power. That is the basic idea of understanding. So again in the highway driving cycle, you can see the vehicle is not frequently going to brake. Here this is the instantaneous power. You can see hardly it goes negative, it goes only in the positive direction. So it can go to negative direction only when you are slightly reducing the speed in the deceleration process, and during this speed, whatever amount of kinetic energy is there in the vehicles or the wheels, that is recovered, and using the regenerative braking, that power is available, and that power is the difference between this average power and this average power. So difference between these two lines is the amount of regenerative power. So average power with zero regenerative braking is this much, whereas average power with full regenerative braking is this much. So accordingly, you can see that with full regenerative braking type of vehicle, the power requirement is less than the power requirement with zero regenerative braking. So if you are selecting an engine or the generator for series hybrid drive with regenerative braking, the size of the engine or vehicle generator would be smaller with regenerative braking component, and it will be larger for the absence of regenerative braking component. So accordingly, here you can see average power with full regenerative braking stands for the operation with implementing regenerative braking operating at its full capacity. So when you are operating the regenerative braking at its full capacity, you have this particular reduced value of the average power. That is what you can see from these two graphs. So these two graphs, they predict or they show how exactly the size of the generator or the engine can be determined. Then energy capacity of PPS. So this is nothing but the size or rating of the peaking power source, which is the battery in this case. So here you can see in some driving conditions, frequent acceleration or deceleration of driving pattern is required, which results in low SOC in the PPS. So as you see, when the vehicle is accelerating or decelerating, at that moment the PPS will come into force and it will discharge the power or it will charge the battery in the other way. The energy changes in the PPS in some typical drive cycles must be known. The energy changes in the PPS can be expressed as delta E is the energy change. This is integral from 0 to t P PPS into dt. So this is P PPS is nothing but the power. So power of the PPS. So this power of the PPS multiplied by dt and integral if you take, that becomes energy. So this energy is nothing but power multiplied by time. So accordingly this integral is taken here. Positive PPS represents charging power, negative power is represented by negative PPS, or this is nothing but discharging power. So 7.11 shows an example in which the energy changes in the peaking power vary with driving time. So this also shows the maximum amount of energy changes delta E max in the whole drive cycle if the SOC of the PPS is allowed in the operating range between SOC top and SOC bottom. So this SOC top and SOC bottom, these are nothing but top line and bottom line of SOC. So these are nothing but those lines which we have seen just before few slides. So here you can see this graph, this is energy changes in a typical urban drive cycle with maximum SOC control strategy. So this is the control strategy which we are using for this graph, maximum state of charge control strategy. That means the first control strategy, which is maximum SOC control strategy. With that, energy changes has been given here with typical urban drive cycle. Urban drive cycle means frequent stops and frequent starts are there. So now here energy changes, they are negative when the battery is discharged. So here you can see positive PPS is the charging power. So this PPS is positive here when the battery is charging. See here, PPS charging power. So when you are having the performance in this particular positive y-axis from here to here, in this range you have the charging and here you have discharging. So when PPS is negative, the battery is discharged into the traction drive. So here you can see that this is the bottom line of SOC and this is the top line of SOC. So accordingly this is the bottom line of energy and this is the top line of energy. So how do you calculate the energy? Energy stored in the battery, that is nothing but this equation. This is the energy change and energy would be equal to PPS, P PPS into time. How much time the required amount of power can be supplied. So this way, this energy changes, they can be plotted for a particular typical urban drive cycle. So here you can see from here, when the charging is taking place means you are braking the vehicle here, and when discharging is taking place you are discharging the PPS into the motor drive. So accordingly here you have discharging cycle and these are the charging cycles, and between these two limits you have delta E max. So delta E max, this is the maximum change in energy which is required to take place, that is calculated by using this particular graph. The operating range of PPS SOC depends upon the operating characteristics of PPS. So for efficiency reasons, chemical batteries would have an optimal operating range in the middle of 0.4 to 0.7. That means when the chemical batteries are there, 40 to 70% is the middle operating range, wherein this is the 40 to 70%. And for limited voltage variation regions, ultra capacitors would only have a very limited energy change range, 0.8 to 1. So this is very small energy change range. So from this delta E max, E is very small, of the order of 0.8 to 1 for ultra capacitors or the super capacitors. So this E capacitor 710 whole energy capacity of the peaking power can be calculated using equation 710. So this is the whole capacity of the peaking power source. So when you want to calculate this E capacity, this must be calculated for determining the size of the PPS. So this involves delta E max, which is this value, divided by SOC top and SOC bottom. So between these two, because the top line and bottom line of SOC must be known, accordingly this particular E capacity must be found out, and that is the size of the battery which is to be connected to the load. So this is what we have seen for the series hybrid drivetrain. So when you are using series hybrid drivetrain, these are all important parameters which we have seen. So in the series hybrid drivetrain, we have seen the block diagram of series hybrid drivetrain, then how exactly each block of the block diagram can be seen, and how exactly the functions of each block can be decided, then how each block can be designed, that also we have seen. Say for example, only three major parts of the block diagram, which is the engine or generator, then PPS, and then the motor drive. So these three parts, these are the major parts. How the sizing of these major parts can be done, that we have seen. Plus we have seen different control strategies for the series hybrid drivetrain. One control strategy is maximum PPS or SOC. Second control strategy is thermostat control or on-off control of engine. So these all parameters we have seen, along with some equations which decide the rating of different components and the equations which decide the size of the different components. Then we go to parallel hybrid electric drive train design. So we have seen about series hybrid. Now what is the exact mechanism of these components in the parallel hybrid equations? So here you can see this is the configuration of parallel torque coupling hybrid drivetrain. So you can see this particular block diagram, and this you can compare with the series hybrid drivetrain. Here you can see torque coupler is one important additional part which is required compared with the series hybrid drivetrain. And here you have the motor, which is electric motor, coupled with the torque coupler. Similarly, there is a engine, IC engine, along with the transmission gear, and that is also connected to the torque coupler. And this torque coupler in turn is connected with the wheels. So these are the wheels of the vehicle. And double line indicates the mechanical connection, single thick line indicates the electrical connection, and single small line or narrow line indicates the signals. So these are the signals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Similarly 8. These are the different signal lines. So signal lines, they carry very small signals. So this vehicle controller is the basic brain of the vehicle, wherein it takes the inputs from operation command What is meant by operation command? Operation command is nothing but the commands given by the driver of the engine. So the driver of the engine may stop the engine, he may brake the vehicle, he may accelerate the vehicle, he may decelerate the vehicle, and so on. So these are all known as operation commands by the driver. Second input for the vehicle controller is the vehicle speed. From here the feedback signal is taken and this is given to vehicle controller. The third input is given from the engine controller. So engine throttle valve position. So how much petrol or the fuel is to be injected into the engine, that will be decided by the engine controller, and this throttle valve position is another input for the vehicle controller. Then next input is PPS SOC, that means state of charge of peaking power source. So this is another input given to the vehicle controller. Output from the vehicle controller, one is going to mechanical brake controller here. So this mechanical brake controller comes into action when the power which is braking power, that means if you want to suddenly stop the vehicle, along with the regenerative braking you need to have the mechanical brake system also, because in that case braking power required or braking power which is regenerated is greater than maximum power which the vehicle can regenerate. So the additional power has to be spent in the mechanical brakes. So here this is the brake controller. The second output is motor control signal. So here this is motor controller, this is nothing but your power electronics interface between the peaking power source and the motor controller. So this motor control signal is given to motor controller, whether this motor controller should operate or should reduce the speed, increase the speed, or convert properly, or the motor can be converted into generating action under the regenerative braking conditions. These are all given by the motor control signal. And the next output is engine control. This is again providing the throttle valve position based upon the requirement of the actual speed, and accordingly this can be done, engine controller. So this is the block diagram of the parallel torque coupling hybrid drivetrain.